Greetings everyone, this is Russell or Carlin, and this is my week 4 review video. And for this week, I just did a CD from Paramore, and I just had a look up on a website here, and just got all the track names. And this is the XML here. You can just do a web search for it. It's musicbrains.org. And I also, for the details, I just have the recording ID on the site that they do all the stuff on. So that's all that. For the code here, this is just where my variables were at the beginning, and this sets all the URL and the request and the connection and everything, and also it sets up my initializes my singleton. And then down here, this just grabs the data and appends it to the NS object. It just goes through and it only receives one big chunk of data, so the append really isn't necessary, but it's just good in case there is more than one data being retrieved. And that just stores it into an NS data object here called album. And then after that is done, this all of the data is retrieved, then it starts the parsing and sets up all the parser and everything, and it uses the data from the album, or the NS data object, which is called album. And then here we're just taking all the ID. It goes through, and if the element that it's on has the ID of, or the title, the name of it is recording, then it takes the ID attribute and then saves that to an array so that I can use that later. And then this is for the text, because how this XML document is that it has the title for each track inside of the title there, the title element. So to get that in the inner text or whatever, I just go for found characters, and then it just adds that string and appends it to an object, or appends it to the title value. And then down here, this is what appends it to, or adds it to an object, and then appends it to the titles array. So this is just after the element is went through, and if it has the name of title for each of the different tracks, then it takes the value that I saved through here, which would be the title of that track, and then adds it to the array, so then I can use all the titles later. And this one is just after all of the data is collected and it's done parsing everything. The table actually loads before any of the parsing happens, so this doesn't have anything on here, like there'll be nothing, but this fixes that. It just reloads the whole table, and so after there's already objects inside the array. And then here, this is just for removes the first title, because there's a title element that's named title for the actual album, Brand New Eyes. So I just took off the first one, and if there is any objects in the array, then I have the data, so then it removes the first one, and then it sets the count. And then all the rest of it is pretty much the same as the last few weeks, except it's just using the titles array and the for the cells, it's just using the title array. And then down here is where the actual the details view that pops out of the side when you click one. That one uses the title array, and also it uses the ID. So it just grabs that data from the array and then puts it into a string, a formatted string, and then adds it to the text so that each one is different here, as you can see. So that's pretty much everything, and then that's at the bottom here is just for the closing of the second view that pops up there. And for the second view is pretty short, just because it's just a big text view with all the XML in there. and the only thing is that it grabs the XML and then converts it into a string using the NS-ASCII string encoding, and just puts it into one big string and then sets the text to that string. So pretty simple stuff. And also my singleton down here that I used, it took me a while to kind of figure this out, but I found a blog post that explained them really well, and I used some of the code from that. And well, not exactly, but I used this here, which is the makes it so that it's only initialized once, and so there's not a bunch of different copies of all the variables and everything, because that's what was messing me up. So I found this, and it worked really well, and it uses the GCD method, dispatch once, to make sure that it only is initialized once. And then this are just the default values, just initializing all of the variables. And that should be all for this week. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next month.